Good evening, good evening, good evening, parents. It's Sharna here with day 3 strike update. We've survived day 3. I know it was a little rough in terms of the weather, but we managed to make it through. It seems like today the focus of the rallies were at the local district sites, so teachers came together and had an opportunity to kind of just express their feelings and voice their concerns at their various local district sites. So out here in the Valley, we are local district Northwest, and our rallying point happened to be Victory, Balboa area near Birmingham Charter High School. Speaking of Birmingham, today I want to talk a little bit about 3 things. One, charter schools, and just to clarify a lot of questions about what are charter schools, the different types of charter schools, how is UTLA involved in charter schools. 2, a quick negotiations update, and as I am recording this video, ABC7 is actually broadcasting an update as well. And then 3, what I think is the most important, and that's what's next. So the strike will be ending soon, and as parents, you know, it's not ever going to be business as usual. We all have experienced different things, you know, at our school sites, the district level. We all hopefully have learned some things, and it is my hope that we all walk away from this experience a little bit more knowledgeable and action oriented. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So first thing, charter schools. So there's been a lot of questions around charter schools, and I know particularly in our area, El Camino is not striking, and a lot of people still believe that El Camino is an LAUSD school. In fact, El Camino is an independent conversion charter school. So they were once part of LAUSD, but several years ago they converted from the traditional LAUSD school to an independent charter. And then Hale Charter Academy and also Welby Way, these are the 3 schools that kind of feed into each other, are both affiliated charters. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Although El Camino has teachers that are part of UTLA, they were not involved in the strike because their bargaining unit reached an agreement with their oversight board, which happens to be El Camino's board of directors, at the end of the last school year. So therefore, you know, their contract was ratified, it was signed off and voted on and accepted, and is actually in place for this school year. Now, the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact, UTLA president and representatives were in front of the Accelerated School, which is another independent charter organization that happens to have its members a part of UTLA. So UTLA, think of it as an umbrella organization. It's the United Teachers Los Angeles organization. So pretty much any teacher in Los Angeles could potentially be a part of this union. It just depends on whether or not the governing, I want to say the members or the teachers elect to participate in UTLA. So charter organizations such as Green Dot Public Schools, they also have UTLA members. However, they are not a part of this LAUSD strike. And I would say that members of the Accelerated School, UTLA, are not a part of LAUSD's teacher strike, but instead they're having their own strike, which happens to be very historical. From what I recall, this is the first ever charter organization or charter school teachers who've elected to go on strike since the charter school movement happened many years ago. And I believe that's in the state of California. And then across the country, I believe it's the second charter organization that's ever went out on strike since the charter movement nationwide. So just a little tidbits about those are independent charters. And independent basically means that you essentially are your own governing body. Okay, so in the example of El Camino, in the example of Birmingham, Granada Hills, and Palisades, those are kind of like the 4 major independent charter schools who were once part of LAUSD. And so now that means that they are their own entire entity. So when you think of LAUSD, you think of the headquarters down at Beaudry, and there's the superintendent, there's the board members, and then all the other employees that are there at the home office. So in the example, or in the instance of El Camino, Birmingham, Granada, and Palisades, they each have an executive director, and then they also have a governing board of directors that kind of oversee the management of the charter school. And with that being said, each one of those schools are in essence their own charter management organization. So they could essentially have spans. They could expand and have elementary schools, middle schools. It could be, a Birmingham High School North, a Birmingham High School South, however you want, you may, but they're their own management organization. They still have some ties with LAUSD, especially if their special education department is being overseen by LAUSD. But other than that, the charter is independent of LAUSD. Okay, so that's the independent charter schools. And even within the independent charter schools, there are two different types. There's a startup. That means this is a school that's from the ground up, and it's going to be an independent. So that could be a school like in Ivy Academia. So Birmingham, Palisades, Granada, El Camino, those are conversion independent charter schools, meaning they were once part of LAUSD, and they have since converted into an independent charter. Now, affiliated charters is where I think the confusion is coming in as well, because there are many, many affiliated charters across the Los Angeles Unified School District. And an affiliated charter, in essence, is an LAUSD school that applied for, or they call it, you petition for a charter, and you are granted affiliated status, in which you have more control over local operations, you have more control over curriculum, you have more control over funding and how funds are spent. For the most part, everything else still falls under the supervision of LAUSD, but affiliated charters do have a little more leeway and flexibility and autonomy in those particular areas. With affiliated charters, they still report to their local districts, as well as downtown superintendent, as well as the board of directors. But they often have a school site governing board. So it could be a school site council. In the case of Hale, it's the Hale Charter Council. This is a local decision-making body, and it usually consists of teachers, students, parents, and of course administrators. And they come together to make the decisions of the school. So what curriculum, what the school calendar is going to look like, bell schedules, the budget, how is money going to be spent at that level, and things of that sort. And also with affiliated charters, no, that's it. I think that's all that I want to say about affiliated charters. So hopefully that kind of explained a little bit about the difference between affiliated and independent. So even if you just hear the name of a school, so like Woodland Hills Academy pops in my mind, Taft is a charter school. You want to do your research to find out, is this school an independent charter or is this school an affiliated charter? And what I'll do is I will put a link down to a document that is available on the district's website that lists all of the schools that are operating as charters, whether it's independent or affiliate within LAUSD. And then there'll be a second list, which is kind of like the wait list of schools who I believe have recently been approved or are about to be approved, so that you can kind of know where your school stands. Is my school an independent? Is it an affiliate? Has my school petitioned to become a charter school? And then a little bit later on, we'll talk about the benefits. Like, why would a school want to become a charter when it seems like there's a lot of debate and argument during this strike about how charters are depleting the resources of LAUSD? So it does send kind of a mixed message, but we'll talk about that at another time. All right, so negotiations. So negotiations are set to resume tomorrow. Hopefully, we can see some type of resolution. I mean, we definitely, I said I could imagine this strike lasting longer than Friday. It is definitely taking a toll on everyone that is involved parents, students, teachers, administrators, district personnel. It's like our lives are kind of in limbo right now. And so we definitely want to encourage both sides to come to the table and figure out a way to make this happen for our students. You know, this has been a long 3 days. Tomorrow's day 4. And we just want to be confident and supportive and ensure that we are able to get the results that are appropriate for our students and for their future. Okay. Let's see. Finally, what's next? So when the strike is finally over and we, return to schools, our kids return to schools, our teachers return, parents go back to, living our parent life, what next? Definitely things aren't going to be the way they were because despite all the challenges and negative things that have come out of this strike, I think the number one positive thing that have come out is parent awareness. And it's important that as a parent of a student in LAUSD or any public school or private school, you need to understand what your rights are and what your students' educational rights are. And that's really, really important. Point in case, the whole attendance debate. From day one, there was discussion about whether or not I should send my kid to school, what are going to be the implications if I don't, rumors about consequences, my kid won't be able to participate in culmination, or I'm going to lose my spot in the lottery. There were a lot of different things that were going on around attendance. But in understanding your rights and the law says very clearly that there could be no retaliation against students who participate in strike activities, because that is, students exercising their right to protest, right to assemble, free speech, all those things. And it's important that we understand our rights that our ancestors before us fought for. We are on the eve of Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, and he is, our symbol of fighting for equality and for standing up for ourselves. And I think it's important that as we start to transition from the strike to, next, is that we as parents make a commitment to ourselves and to our kids to figure out what's going on, what resources are available, what is the role of the members of the Board of Education? What is the role of the superintendent? How is the superintendent elected? How did he come to be? How are our board members elected? Do we each get to vote for each board member, or is it divided by districts? These are things that a lot of parents don't know, and it's important. Right now we do have a board seat up for election. Board, I think it's District 5. Do you know where District 5 is? Do you have any friends, family, people that you can reach out to in District 5 to let them know, like, hey, it's important that you get out and vote because we see how this can affect, our kids in the future. Parents are waking up. I don't know if any of you caught the Facebook Live broadcast that UTLA had on a little bit earlier, where parents were very upset at board president Monica Garcia, and they went to express their frustrations and I believe to deliver a letter to her home. I don't know if that was the best thing to do, but they were quite angry, and a lot of our Latino parents felt like they were being manipulated and given misinformation, and when they became educated, they began to stand up and to speak up. And I want to applaud each and every parent who has done that, because being put in a very uncomfortable situation and having to make decisions that maybe you don't believe in, but because you have fears of certain consequences, really puts you in a bad place. And as a parent, we all want to fight and advocate for our child. And so, I applaud the parents for standing up for themselves. And, I guess come to find out that there were school police at her home offering security and protection. So that's a question. Our tax dollars are being used for people's personal gains. And so, these are questions that we need to ask. We're talking about there's no money for this and no money for that. Well, those were resources that could have been allocated somewhere else. And, private security could have been hired. Our local law enforcement is available. We pay our taxes. That's what that's for. So that's a little concerning. So these are things that, we need to start the conversation. What's next? The other thing is that our school administrators are starting to push back through their own unions because they're finding out that they're being played, and they're being pitted against their own parents, being told one thing and then hearing other things. And so there's a lot of things going on. And so as parents, we need to get in the mix, and we need to find out what's going on. We need to find out what changes can be made. We need to find out how do we go about making these changes, and we need to start having these conversations. This is just like our jump start into 2019 and in education. I believe it's going to change. Los Angeles is setting the precedent for districts all across the nation. They're watching us. We are one of the largest districts in the nation, and so we are not just fighting for our own kids here in Los Angeles, but in essence, we're fighting for kids all across the country. So start thinking about that. For those of you that are in the Woodland Hills, West Hills area, we're going to be hosting a meetup on Friday from 11 to 2 at West Hills Pizza. And it's just, let's get together, let's fellowship, let's eat some pizza, let our kids play some games. A lot of them haven't seen each other all week. And as parents, let's start to have these conversations about what's going to happen next. It shouldn't be, okay, the strike ends, everybody just sends their kids to school. It should be, okay, when is the next school site council meeting? When is the next PTA meeting? Here is a list of questions that we have. Here's a list of concerns. What changes are going to be made now that these resources are being allocated to our schools. And even looking ahead, we know that the district took a hit these past couple days, up in the millions. And if the first day was 25 million, today would make it 50 million plus. And we know that our budget next year is going to be impacted. So let's start being proactive now. What are some things that we can do as parents to start to fill the void, so that we won't have an interruption in our instruction and curriculum of our children for next year? So that's today's recap. Fingers crossed for negotiations tomorrow. I know that the West Valley schools, elementary schools, are going to be meeting up at Hale, and then are going to be marching from Hale Charter Academy to the Platte Village, and then returning back to picketing at the various locations. And then I think there's going to be another march during the afternoon as well. So make sure you check Facebook to see what your local school, UTLA groups are putting together. And we'll check in tomorrow. Bye for now.